So it's Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, the biggest show on earth. Who is going to win the US election? The implications for Australia are huge. Not that you'd know that, of course, by looking at the coverage of this greatest show on earth. Peanuts the squirrel is the latest thing hogging the headlines about this squirrel that authorities in New York are going to euthanize. The battle against wokeness. Personally, I'd vote for Jill Stein, the independent candidate who's against war in the Middle East, but it doesn't matter because we don't vote here in Australia, but the implications for Australia are deadly serious in foreign policy terms. The system is broken and we are caught up in it. Now we have Hobson's choice here, or perhaps it's better Morton's fork choice. A disaster whichever way you look at it, whoever wins. The reason for that is, and while in sentimental terms I'd like to see a black woman win, I'd like to see Kamala Harris win, a woman, the first US president, person of colour. But, of course, the implications for Australia are that we're tied up in the US via AUKUS. We're bombing Yemen at the moment, heading that campaign. Not that you'd know about it from reading the media here. And we're looking at following the US into war against Iran and probably China at some stage to defend the US dollar hegemony as well. This is the twilight of the American empire as the exodus of the BRICS countries, 13 they signed up 2 weeks ago, new member states, partner states, with another 36 on the waiting list. The polls are tight with Harris and Trump, but if Harris wins, it's more of the same. It's pouring US billions into Israel. It's our friend, the Israeli government, which is a disaster in the Middle East. All the men and women of US Congress almost have bought off. If you check out the money trail, just follow the money. What have we got? We've got the US pouring $22 billion into Israel, and Israel spending money, recycling that money into literally buying US politicians. Over the past 2 years, they've ramped that up, specifically targeting every electoral race. Harris herself is bought off to the tune of $5.4 million by IPAC, the Israel war lobby. That's Australian dollars about $9 million. Joe Biden is more than $8 million into it as well. So therefore, their policy in the Middle East is completely hapless. It is broken. I think Kamala Harris has also picked up about another $5 million from another Israel lobby as well. So the ominous factor here for all Australians is war, of course. It's the prospect that young Australians, men and women, might be packed off to the next US useless war, beholden as the US regime is to gun lobby money, weapons manufacturing money, and of course IPAC, the Israel lobby. So there won't be any change in the battle to maintain US hegemony if Kamala Harris gets up. She is a much more sensible candidate, and shortly we're going to play a short clip of our interview with David Cay Johnston to show the character of Donald Trump, what we get if Trump is in fact elected to the US presidency. Now, what happens if this felon gets up, this sex pest, this inveterate liar and narcissist, this crazy guy? What happens? Well, he's completely unpredictable. This is the issue. The good news is that he doesn't want to drag the US into more wars. He's internally focused, and last time he was president, he didn't start any wars, the first president for quite some time to do that. We don't know. Now, he's made very hawkish statements about Israel and so on, but as we all know, Donald Trump is capricious. He could easily turn around and give Netanyahu the bird once he figures out he's being misled and lied to by Benjamin Netanyahu like everybody else. So you could conceive that he may destabilise the whole world. He could just push the wrong button. He may just get a burst of narcissistic tendency and do whatever. He's completely unpredictable. But the fact is, he may give us the out to get out of this AUKUS foreign policy deal, because the guts of it is they're into us for $368 billion for these nuclear subs, which may never arrive. It's a con. We've got to work out whether we think we're on the right team. There's got to be a proper discussion in Australian foreign policy circles as to a more independent foreign policy for Australia. And Trump might give us the leave pass to do that, to get involved in no more useless foreign American wars and not to cede our sovereignty, US bases and so on. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, if we do go to war with China, they will be controlling it because they will control the software, not to mention bossing us on what to do to protect American interests. So who knows? Hobson's choice, very difficult one. But here is my old associate and mate, David Cay Johnston, who's Donald Trump's 3-time biographer. He's known Donald for well over 30 years, and he's going to give us the lowdown on the character of Donald Trump. Who knows who's going to get up, but this is what we're in for if we get Trump.
But Donald has gotten away with this his whole life. You know, he as a young man, he came into meeting Roy Cohn, the notorious lawyer from the Army McCarthy hearings and the claims that communists were all through the Eisenhower administration and other nonsense in the 50s. And Roy Cohn taught him how to evade law enforcement. In his 30s, 4 different federal grand juries were after Donald. He beat 2 of them by running out the clock and 2 of them by turning over other people, by ratting out other people. All right. He engaged in sales tax fraud with jewelry he bought from Bulgari, which is right next to Trump Tower. The mayor of New York, Ed Koch, said he served 15 days for it. He didn't serve any time at all. Why? Well, he ratted out other people. And he's done this sort of thing his whole life.
Or got settlements, sacred settlements.
Well, the civil settlements, yes. And I mean, I admire Donald for a couple of things. He is, I've written about many con artists. I've exposed a lot of con artists in my career, which goes back to the 1960s. Donald is the greatest con artist in the history of the world. He conned his way into the most powerful job in the world by claiming he was things he's not. And he is masterful at understanding how to evade law enforcement, both civil law enforcement, like regulatory law, and criminal law enforcement. I mean, he's really just astonishingly good at it. Donald and I have had plenty of arguments about this. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he's called me up on the phone. I'm going to sue you, David. Well, if you have a case, Donald, I think you should bring it on. And hangs up. He's hired some of the most expensive lawyers in America to come after me and intimidate the New York Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is the toughest investigative paper in the country, the Philadelphia Inquirer, when I worked there. And never gotten anywhere because he knows I don't write anything about him I can't prove.